We did that yesterday, and we did wide receiver as well. Of these players that are kind of on the short list that the Packers like, let's go see what Dane Brugler says about them now. That's the other wrinkle we're going to add into the whole draft process. So now we're going comparing the top defensive tackle on the Packers roster, or on the Packers radar, I apologize. With the departure of TJ Slayton, along with Kenny Clark 1 year closer to his career's end, Brian Gutekunst will most likely draft at least one defensive tackle in this year's draft. Listed below are three prospects that seem to be on the Packers short list, having had top 30 visits with Green Bay. All right. So also listed are their rankings on the PTA Big Board and Dane Brugler's detailed scouting report. So you've got Tyleik Williams in the number 36 spot. Hate that my boy, that Notre Dame fighting Irish over fighting for his life laying on the ground there after Tyleik spilled him, but that's the price you pay. Here's the scouting report from Dane Brugler. A 2-year starter at Ohio State, Williams played the three technique position in former defensive coordinator Jim Knowles' four-man front. His production won't jump off the page. He finished 10th in tackles with 46, 6th in sacks with 2.5 for the Buckeyes national title-winning squad in 2024. But his impact as a dominant run defender is much clearer on the tape. With his initial quickness, Williams can cross the face of blockers or create knockback with his ability to stack, find the football, and detach. Aside from his physical capabilities, he has outstanding awareness to identify pre-snap clues and anticipate play design. That's called football IQ. Overall, Williams needs further development as a pass rusher, but he is one of the best run-defending linemen in the draft class because of his recognition skills and disciplined execution at deconstructing blocks. He has the type of skill set that will be appreciated by NFL coaches. So, again, Devontae Wyatt's our best interior pass rusher, right? We talked about that over and over and over this offseason. When we do move on from Kenny, whether it's next year or the year after, this is a guy who could potentially play the run and kind of take over that one tech in our base 4-3 if we're playing an over or an under. That makes sense? So what's your initial thoughts on him before we get into the strengths this year?
Man, I mean, I don't know what it is about the Ohio State guys. I kind of overlook them a lot of the times. Tyleik was not one that was really on my wish list or my high hopes list kind of thing. I don't know why. I mean, he really is a freak athlete. It seems like 6'3", 327, just over 22 years of age. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why he just isn't on my radar, and he's not one that like I get excited about. He's just kind of meh, in my opinion. Where do you have him on the board, on your board?
36. Yeah.
36. Okay. Oh, right there. All right. Yeah, I just don't know, man. It's for some reason I just feel like that he's a small fish in a big pond kind of thing, where I feel like I can't tell if it's him being a stud or the fact that he had JT and the other guy on the edge there helping him. I don't know. I'm not sold on him yet.
Got it. And again, a top 30 visit, and that could have been the case with Goody. He might not have been sold and said, let me get a better look at him, And, when you say no pass rush, Chris, I can't subscribe to that, man. Like, when I hear no pass rush, I mean, this dude can't rush the passer at all. That's just not the case. You got to really dig into the tape and look at what did Ohio State ask him to do. Like Jacob said, you got two great edge defenders. What did Kenny do last year? Kenny touched spot a lot, right? And without looking at the tape, and we're just looking at spreadsheet numbers, that's, it's hard for me to just make that definitive of a decision of, boy, this guy can't rush the passer at all, especially when you hear scouts talk about, how well he played throughout his college career. We did a detailed report on him earlier, a scouting report when the top 30 was mentioned. It's not like this dude can't rush the passer. That's why you got to dig into what he was actually asked to do for sure. Let's see what it says here. Strengths. It's definitely not his strength, don't get me wrong, but when we speak in definitives, that stuff I got to push back on a little bit. Strengths: owns a thick frame with large hands, quickly breaks down blocks in the run game with hip explosion and extension at contact, maintains gap integrity, and uses natural leverage to stay balanced through congestion. Upfield burst once he defeats the hands of the blocker. Tough guy to slow down once he gets his momentum downhill through the gaps. Terrific block awareness and has a feel for splitting double teams. Creates more penalties than he commits. That's really cool. That's an interesting take. Like guys are trying to hold him. Like, that's the other thing you take into consideration too when you talk about pass rush win rate and this and that. You turn on the tape and you see He drew 6 holding calls or whatever the number is. That's another positive. Sniffs out screens and understands where the offense wants to attack. Always in pursuit mode. Frequently makes tackles away from his square. And then weighed more than 360 pounds when he enrolled and worked hard to keep a steady weight. So obviously he trimmed a lot of that off. I want to say last year he was listed at 350 going into the year. And then at the combine, I'm trying to remember, I don't have his RAS card right here, but at his combine, he had trimmed down to like 330 or something like that.
I was going to say, yeah, PFF has him listed at 327. So,
yeah, that's pretty impressive for sure. Weaknesses. He's got below average length and can be out levered if he doesn't win off the snap. Doesn't consistently collapse the pocket as a pass rusher. Not known for his ability to counter and has some stiffness attempting to redirect. Needs to mature his pass rush plan beyond his initial attack. Strong backs can run through his fingertip tackles. See the 2024 Penn State tape. Missed 3 games as a senior with lower body injury September 2024 and an ankle issue November 2024. Battled a shoulder, elbow, and knee injuries throughout 22 seasons. So there's definitely some injury concerns there as well with Tyleik. So anything else you want to add to Tyleik Williams before we move on to the next top 30 visit from the Packers here, man?
No. Yeah, I understand maybe the criticism is that he's not quite a pass rusher, but like you said, I feel like maybe he wasn't allowed to necessarily be as freakish as maybe his body would let him. You know what I mean? Like the coaching strategy was just didn't allow him to maybe do what he could do. His pass rush win rate was a 6.6%, and he did have a pass rush grade of 59.8. But again, that run defense grade of nearly a 90, I mean, that's pretty intriguing there.
Yeah. And again, how are we going to use him in terms of deployment, right? If the Packers, he's going to play the Kenny Clark role, the one tech role, most likely. So,
would you see him as a Slayton replacement, a decent Slayton replacement?
Yeah, and see that's the thing. Kenny and Slayton, what they would do in the base, they would put Slayton in the 1 and put Kenny to the 3. But you're not in the base very often, so you're in the nickel the majority of the time. When you went to the nickel, they would put Kenny in the 1 to 2 eye, and then they would put Devontae White over the 3. So I see him playing that role with Kenny and TJ. So you probably see him come in on base defense. And that's the thing about Devontae White that's tough. You know, like when you see people in the comments and people on Twitter go, he can't rush the passer, I don't want him. We got a pass rush specialist in Devontae White, and he struggles against the run, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then people complain that he's not on the field more. But if you're going to complain that he's not on the field more, then you better acknowledge the fact that the run defense was second best in the league at 4 yards clip allowed, right? That's the give and take of NFL defenses. You can't take everything away. So if we just go, all right, let's just get a pass rush and 3 tech, we get rid of Kenny, right? And now all of a sudden we move on from Kenny next year and the run defense slides back to 13th, 14th, or 15th. And now all of a sudden you only win 9 or 10 games. People are going to be calling for Jeff Hafley's job as opposed to why did we go get another pass rush specialist when we were doing really good against the run? So that's just some of the stuff you got to kind of take into consideration. I want to hit this question real quick. I've seen it asked a couple of times. I definitely am not ignoring it. I was trying to weave it in, Chris. Appreciate you, buddy. He says, Clayton, how often do you think about thinking to do a college football show? So I'd asked a poll question, and I wanted you guys to make the decision for the channel. I said, would you approve us adding a college football show to the channel or just keep it Packers? 72% said no, just keep it Packers. So we will not do that on the show on this particular channel. 28% said yes. If we were to do a college football show, it would be much more random. But I think it's so important. Like we get to this time of the year and we're trying to figure out, all right, who's good at that? Who's good at this? Who's good at that? Me and Tim kind of had a leg up this year because we did a college football podcast at the end of the year, started kind of prepping early for the draft and like, hey, here's where these guys are lined up. We did a college football preview is what we did. I think it will be fun. What I'll probably have to do, Jacob, is create a whole separate channel. So because I do want to respect the fact and honor the fact that people tune into this channel for Packers talk. We want to keep it strictly Packers. And I some of my favorite channels, they convolute their channel, adding different things. I'm like, I got a notification you had a new show. I thought we were going to hit on this, and you didn't. I try to not mislead people in that regard. So to answer your question, Chris, it would be I would think start with once a week, but it might turn into something where we're doing it, 2 or 3 times a week, that type of thing. I think it would be fun. I think it would be interesting for sure. It'd just be a better way for us to stay more educated on the draft as it approaches, that type of thing. So, all right. Up next, TJ Sanders in the 40 spot. You notice, Jacob, some people see Tyleik Williams as a first round pick. We got these guys pretty close together, man. If TJ Sanders is there in the second round, another guy I'd be willing to trade up for. I don't know if I feel good about taking him at 23, but again, if Goody takes him at 23, you know why. A 2-year starter at South Carolina, Sanders was a versatile defensive tackle and defensive coordinator. Clayton Watts' four-man front, aligning up and down the line of scrimmage. A late bloomer, Sanders didn't focus on football until his junior year in high school. His impact steadily improved each of his four seasons as a part of a deep, talented Gamecocks defensive line. They averaged just 36 defensive snaps, or he averaged just 36 defensive snaps in 2024. With his initial burst, Sanders can maneuver through gaps with abrupt hands and feet or change the line of scrimmage by quickly getting into a blocker's chest. He is surprisingly stout at the point of attack and flashes power and hand use to stack and shed against the run. Overall, Sanders is a long, twitchy big man that has the tools to make consistent plays in the backfield and continued technical and awareness improvements. His promising skill set will fit both even and odd fronts. As we talk about even and odd, you guys do your own research there. We're talking about how the line, how the defensive line aligns there, because what you'll do is try to force a 5-man front, especially in college football. You'll try to force a 5-man front, so you may play an over and under, an even, or an odd look. So, what do you think, Jacob? TJ Sanders here, man.
This is a guy that's very high on my list. He just feels like he'd fit so well. When you look at his grades, he did everything really well. I mean, I don't think he had a bad game last year if you look week by week. And some of his best games were against higher competition, so you love that. He's played A-gap snaps. He plays predominantly B-gap snaps. You look at the progression from 2022, it's a 57.4 to 2023, a 72.5 to 2024, an 82.4. You look at his all-around grading, and it's just really, really good around the board. Pass rush grade of 81.9, run defense grade of a 77 flat, a true pass set rush grade of 90.3, and a pass rush win rate of 12.6, and a run stop rate of 8.8%. I mean, he's got production as far as sack wise for being a D tackle. He's had 5 sacks the last 2 years. He had almost 20 hurries the last couple of years. I mean, I just really, really enjoy the prospect, the idea of him, 6'4", 290, 21.7 years of age. I mean, everything about it just says, yeah, let's get him in here. He's a top 30 visit. To me, it's where can we get him? Does he fall to 54? I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily love the idea of him at 23, but they'd be one of those players where if we were able to trade back or trade up at some point and just grab that guy in the middle of maybe the second or something like that, I'd be over the moon.
That's the other thing that keeps kind of coming back up in our conversations, Jacob, is there's a lot of players you go, man, might have to trade back up in the second, but he'd be worth it. You know what I mean? There's several players, several positions. Fred McFarley says Sanders was a top 30 visit. I think all of these players are top 30 visits, Fred. These are the guys that are zeroed in. The Packers have done top 30 visits and where they sit on our board. What I try to do is key in on those guys that may potentially be first-round picks or second-round picks, so that all these guys are top 30 visits. You're correct there, sir. Here's the strengths with TJ Sanders. Tall, athletic frame with long arms and range, light on his feet and moves well laterally to access different gaps. Fluid off blocks to close on the football. Flashes violence in his hands. I love that. Flashes violence in his hands to shed and make stops at the line. Active on loops. We do a lot of looping, boys. A lot of those TT stunts, right? And even the ET deals. Mentioned there that he's good at that. Active on loops and will get skinny on stunts and twists. Can push the pocket when he creates downhill momentum. More physical at the point of attack than expected for his size. Loses slowly versus double teams and two gaps with control when needed. Covers ground from the backside with a consistent motor like that. NFL Scout said, quote, the coaches say he really matured and went from being late to meetings when he first got there to becoming a guy who sets the example of how to carry himself as an underclassman. That's very interesting there. So seeing some growth there off the field. Weaknesses. Lacks desire, mass to combat NFL power in the trenches. Savvy Savvy blockers will use his aggressiveness against him. Inconsistent resisting pressure on angle down blocks and can be caught out of position, caught leaning on blocks. Can do a better job countering once the pads become elevated and first move is halted. Has some rough stretches as a tackler. See the 2024 Vandy tape. And then it says average production reflects his average awareness. So you've got two different players here. One in TJ Sanders, who can split those double teams and plays kind of aggressive, it sounds like in the pass, but he's not quite as intelligent. He gets kind of outthinked, if that's a word, outthought. I don't know if that's the right way of saying it, on the field, as opposed to Tyleik Williams, doesn't have that pass rush ability as much, but a much smarter football player, knows how to play with leverage a little bit better. So you kind of see it's what do you want in a player, right? It's not that this guy's better than this guy as much as it is, all right, here's how you're going to deploy him, and here's what he does really, really well. So there you go, Jacob. What do you think about our boy TJ Sanders here, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be like I said, it's just a matter of where for me. It's not if I want him, it's where would I be okay with us taking him. So 23 is a little rich. 54, I feel like he might not last. What do you do? You know, I